Hey, voice teacher, I've got a question for you, and this is a vulnerable one. Are you ready for it? Do you ever feel like you're just another voice teacher in a sea of voice teachers online? Well, first of all, you are not. You are incredible and unique, and you have so much to share with us that is original and powerful. Now it's just a matter of clarifying this and translating it into your business and your branding. So if you've ever felt unsure about your niche or how you stand out as a voice teacher, this episode is for you. This podcast is for professional voice teachers to answer the question, how do I grow my teaching business and even break out of that one-on-one lesson model so that I can reach and teach who I want whenever I want. I'm your host, Allie Tyler, voice teacher of over a decade and marketing and business coach for fellow voice teachers. Welcome to the Voicepreneur Podcast. Hello, lovely voice teacher. Welcome back to another episode of the Voicepreneur Podcast. Thank you, as always, for spending your time with me and for tuning in. I am really excited about this episode. And, I'm excited about every episode, but this one feels really fresh. It feels super fresh because I have been working on this with clients a lot recently. I feel like it's really interesting. Maybe you feel like this as a voice teacher, and I have felt like this as both a voice teacher of singing students and then, of course, what I'm doing now with voice teachers. But I feel like clients tend to go through cycles together. It's like we're sort of teaching the same types of things at the same time to multiple people. And then that changes in a few months. And then that changes in a few months. And I don't know, what is that? Is that like just where we're at or where they're at? Is it a combo? Is it the universe? I don't know. But I feel like right now with my clients, a lot of voice teachers are really wanting to hone in on their niche and what makes them stand out. Here's the thing. Niches, I don't know how you pronounce it, either or, they are really not complicated. I feel like it's sort of one of those things where you're like, oh my gosh, that's so niche. It's so, I don't know. What am I trying to say? I feel like it's just intimidating, right? It can feel like an overwhelming sort of what's the word? I can't think of the word, but yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It's intimidating, and it doesn't need to be. It's not intimidating. In fact, what it really is it's just you. It's just your authentic expression. And what's really interesting is that here's kind of how I like to think about this. If we encourage our voice students to use and express their authentic voice when they sing, right? Or their authentic voice in general, we can encourage ourselves to use and express our authentic voice. And maybe you want to think about this as your brand voice. We can do this when we market ourselves. And all this really means is that your brand voice, your niche is you. It's just you. You are your niche. And that's awesome because the riches are in the niches. So all you got to do is be you, boo. And then you're going to be rich. I'm kidding. Well, I'm kind of not kidding. But here's an example of how the riches are in the niches. I'll just give you a personal example here. So when I went from Allie Tyler Music Studio to the whole voice, immediately that created a shift in the types of clients that I was attracting. It created a shift in the types of modalities that I was integrating into my studio. It created an immediate shift in my brand values and how I was basically presenting myself online. And actually what's really interesting is that this continued to evolve. And that's what's so cool about your niche, your niche, right? You evolve. So your niche is going to evolve as well. So my niche with the whole voice evolved from teaching high school and amateur adults how to sing to self-care singing practices for adults. Subtle but big difference, because now self-care singing for adults is a niche, right? That's different than I teach a bunch of different people how to sing. And this did not come with just a snap of a finger. It came over time. It came through a lot of journaling, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of meditation, and just really tuning inward. And that's what this episode is actually meant to be. Journal on these questions, reflect on these questions, because this is really going to help you carve out your niche and own and express who you are as a teacher. This is how you stand out, my friend. You stand out by being you. So here's some practical ways on how to do that. Here's some things that you can meditate on or you can journal on. The first one is knowing yourself and knowing your story. And let's even take it a step further, owning your story. So knowing yourself, and especially as it relates to singing and teaching, what are your natural strengths? What are the skills that you have acquired over the years? How have you been training? How have you been studying? How have you been performing? What are your skills? You have got tons of skills. What are the things that your students thank you for? And what are the things that you have always had this natural knack for? What do you feel most comfortable teaching and talking about? This is huge. This is where you're really going to start seeing, this is my zone of genius. This is what feels good. This is where I am expressing my most authentic self as a teacher, right? And then if you relate it back to owning your story, really think back on your story. What is your story? What drew you to singing in the first place? How did singing and music support you growing up? So that's all part of the first component, which is knowing yourself and owning your story. Here's the next element, which is connecting to your passions. Your passions. If that's too strong of a word, you can replace that word with your curiosities. I love that word. Thank you, Elizabeth Gilbert. But this is about connecting to your passions. What do you believe in? What do you value? What do you love learning about, right? That's often a really big indicator about what we're passionate about. Or again, what are we curious about? Maybe what do you love talking about? What do you love teaching about? What are you passionate about? You know what you're passionate about. As you are listening to me even say this, I'm sure that there are things that are coming to mind. And then the third component is to take a stance. This is a big one, my friend. And this is where you're going to be like, oh, Allie, I was with you until this point. And now I'm like, oh God. And here's why. I'm going to bring the elephant out in the room. What's that saying? I'm going to talk about the elephant. I'm going to highlight. There's something about an elephant in the room and you know what I'm talking about. And I'm really bad at cliches, but I'm going to talk about it. We are afraid of what other voice teachers might think about us. We are, and it makes sense. We're kind of, I don't know, what's a word that describes voice teachers? We are incredibly empathetic, insanely knowledgeable, cognitive people who really like to be right or, have evidence about things being right, however you want to interpret that. And that can feel really scary as a voice teacher. And I want to shed some light on this because this is something that so many voice teachers talk to me about. And I really appreciate that you feel like you can talk to me about this, truly, because it is a very vulnerable thing to talk about. That I think a lot of us don't know everything about the voice. Of course we don't. We can't. I mean, the voice is so complex and we're constantly learning, and singing is a lifelong practice. And because of that, it can feel really scary to take a stance, especially if that stance is different than something we learned when we were in school, or it's something that's different than other voice teachers are talking about. That's scary. It's totally intimidating. It makes perfect sense. And I want to give you some love and a big hug if you are feeling like that right now. I want to talk about this because from a marketing perspective, and I just got to say, it's so interesting being both a voice teacher and a marketing coach because I have two sides to things. I'm always looking at things from two different lenses. So if I'm putting on my marketing hat right now and I am telling you as a marketing coach, from a marketing perspective, taking a stance on what you believe in and being different and talking about what pisses you off about our industry or anything really that you have been taught is so powerful. It's freaking amazing, actually. It's amazing what happens when you shift other people's beliefs. That is memorable. That makes you stand out. That makes you go, whoa, she just made me think about things differently. I want to learn more, right? It makes people curious about you. So I say all this because I encourage you to do it. I encourage you to be different. I freaking love it when people say things and I am scrolling on Instagram. I'm like, whoa, they just said that? Oh my God, I want to learn more. Tell me more. Like, that is awesome. Be different. Be proud to be different. If you have a different perspective on, let's say, breathing or belting or, I don't know, SOVTs, practicing, classical music, the list goes on and on. Please talk about it. Talk about it. Tell us about how you really feel. So if you want to take this a step further and you want to create your method, I encourage you to check out the Voicepreneur program, because what we do is we essentially say, here's your niche, here's your brand, and now we're going to create your specific way of teaching around all of this stuff that we are talking about today. This is really exciting because this is truly what sets you apart as a voice teacher, is your method. It's the way that you teach. It's the way that you help your students get the results that you help them get. And let me tell you, it's not easy to articulate. So that's why I created a program on how to actually do that. We have content, we have community, we have it all. So go and check it out inside of the show notes of this episode. I hope that this is helpful for you. And if you do end up journaling or reflecting on these prompts and you come up with some sort of aha moments or clarity around this, please let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram. I get really excited about hearing your aha moments. You can either take a screenshot of this episode or you can just shoot me a DM personally and tell me all about it. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go and rate and review it over on iTunes. If you have Spotify and you can't do that, it just helps if you spread the word. So taking a screenshot and sharing it on your Instagram stories and tagging me is super helpful and will help this podcast get in front of more voice teachers. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next episode.